Business ownership has never been hotter, but how do you do it? That's where I come in. Allow me to guide you on your journey. Welcome to Ion Franchise. Sponsored by Leap Brands. From executive recruiting to hourly staff, Leap is your one-stop shop for all of your franchise talent. Hello and welcome back to another fabulous episode of Ion Franchising, and I'm your host, Lance Graulich. So you all know by now that I have founders of brands, top executives of franchise brands, in addition to successful franchisees. But I also have quite a few resources for you in the world of investing, entrepreneurship, etc. And here we are with an amazing guest that is a big-time real estate investor. And he's the host of his own podcast that I was on, the Smart Real Estate Coach podcast, top 0.5% of all podcasts in the world. Big time guy. I'm happy to introduce you to my friend, Chris Prefontaine. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Lance, thanks. And always good to hang out again.
Well, thank you very much. And how's Vermont today?
Vermont is rainy today. Yeah. It's spring here. There's no other option.
No other option. So how did Chris get into the world of real estate investing? And actually, before you answer that, let me set this up even further to the audience. I figured, business ownership and real estate, there's a lot of similarities. The fact of the matter is a lot of people leverage with debt, loans, etc., whether it's hard money loans in real estate to start, SBA loans in the world of business. And it's all about cash flow, and then it's all about equity. How much equity are you building? So there's so many similarities, and I have a lot of real estate investor types that I've helped with franchises, and I know a lot of people that own businesses and franchises that then go into real estate. So how did you start all this in the first place?
Yeah, I'll go two tiers here. It's 33 years in the biz. I'm not going to do 33 years, but I will two-tier it, okay? The first is I grew up in a family business, Lance. We didn't talk about this, and it wasn't real estate. It was a welding supply and industrial gas business that my father took over, and it was doing like, I don't know, 100 grand in business and from his dad. And he built that to 6, 7, 8 million, whatever it was. During that, my tenure, I'll call it, with him, I was working my way through his business, but I witnessed him build his own brick and mortar buildings all around New England. You're a New England guy. And he would lease them back to himself, and I didn't get that as a kid. And when I finally figured it out, I thought it was really cool that his company would lease from him, and he built all these buildings. So he was in the real estate business, even though he was in that business, right? Kind of like McDonald's.
Yep, exactly.
So that was my foray into, as far back as I can remember, that I loved real estate. And then back before it was an issue of politics, I read Trump's first book in the 80s, and I loved that. And I just latched onto real estate. Wow. Fast forward, I've been at this 33 years. So fast forward, I did everything from building homes to I owned a brokerage. I put my realtor hat on. I had never done that. That led up, though, to the crash of 08. And so that was the second tier that I was alluding to. And then in the crash of 08, I learned, to say that I learned lessons is an understatement. I got annihilated financially and mentally. And so I'm sharing that story because that then is the impetus to do what we do today, which is I was so brain dead. I was so beat up financially. I said, okay, I got to get back into real estate. But I had no credit. It was in the toilet. I had no cash, and no bank would look at me. So I said, how can I buy? So we now buy the way that I had to back then, which is without banks, without borrowing gobs of money. We buy everything on what we call terms, but that's basically owner financing, lease purchase, creative real estate. Then that started causing a good wave in the community, and people started calling me to coach them. And I wasn't coaching then, even though I had over the years. Yeah. So that launched Smart Real Estate Coach. Officially in 2014. I was brain dead from the crash for about 4 years, and then started back into it. We now do deals all over North America with students, and I say that to say that we do them in the trenches. Like, we don't just teach and go, hey, good luck, you're on your own. As you know, we have an associate program, it's called. It's not a franchise, but it behaves in a lot of ways like it, because they come in, they rev share with us, we're in the trenches, we roll up our sleeves, and I think that's the best way for anyone in any business to learn that interactive approach. So yes, that was 33 years in 2 minutes, New England style, but I can go back to any piece of that if you want.
No, I love it. So yeah, look, the number one thing people are looking for in a franchise is they're looking for support. They're looking for somebody that has a lot more knowledge than them in a model that's proven. So how do you show that to people? How do you introduce a potential student of the associate program to experienced students per se that you've coached? I mean, what is your process like to determine that somebody's the right person to do this?
Great. So two tiers there too. First is they all apply. And I know it sounds crazy from an educator standpoint. I don't know a lot of platforms, and especially in real estate, that go, no, I can't take you, even though you want to pay us. But we do, because we have a set of values. And if it's going to be a headache or they're going to butt the values, then there's no fit. So there's an application process. And I would say we deny a half a dozen a year. It's not a lot, but that's a lot more than anyone else ever would, right? That wants to be coached. Secondly, once they're in the community, to answer your question a little bit more pointedly, there's a Slack community. The Wicked Smart community is all on Slack. There's like 140 of them. So whether I'm able to answer a question or one of my certified coaches, we have 5, or my son or son-in-law, and you've met my son-in-law.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. There's 75 years of experience there. And so mine and theirs. So they can get the answer from us, but they can also get it from the 140 community members, because someone in the community is at the stage that they're at, right? Yeah. The stage being they're coming from a W-2 to start this, or the stage being they're at their 5th deal and they're having different headaches. Someone in the community has the answer for that. And that's how we do that. And then we also hook them up every week. We do a lot of things with them, but we hook them up every week with a mastermind call. It has to be taking place tonight, where they all come on. All these things, it's kind of a glue for them to speed up their learning curve, but also to be part of the community. It's pretty cool.
I love it. So what would you say the average age is for somebody that participates in this?
Well, I'm going to give you 2 answers to that one too, because we go from we have right now an 18-year-old killing it, and we have a 76-year-old. I will tell you that our avatar tends to be 45 to 65. I don't know why. Maybe it's the investment in themselves and the commitment. I don't know, but that tends to be the people that are crushing it. I think it's because, I'll take a guess at it. I think it's because a lot of people leaving the W-2 now, as you know, your avatar is the same. And they have good, strong 5, but mostly 6-figure incomes that they want to leave behind. And this is a cool vehicle to do it. And so that age bracket tends to fit in there. That's been my observation anyway.
Yeah. So the 76-year-old, I hope he or she doesn't need the money. Like he's doing this, or they're doing this because it's something to do, because it keeps you younger, keeps you part of a community. I got to know.
I have 2 in their 70s. I have one of each. I have one that is got great mortgage experience and is crushing it here and didn't need to do it, chose a different path. Hey, I'm going to pivot my path, so I don't need this. Those are prevalent too. I had one come to my office last week for this private boot camp, just came into my mind. He said, Chris, I chose this because I wanted to do real estate, and then I found you guys. I think this is really unique, but I didn't have to do anything. Yeah. But there's another guy that sadly does. He was in commercial leasing during the crash and never got his head out of the sand. I see that sadly a lot of times, Lance, where they just, I don't know, they blame the crash, or they blame this, or they blame that, and they're still in the sand, and there's no reason for it. So hopefully we can dig them out.
Yeah. Well, you just brought up something else that's really critical. And a lot of podcasts that I'm on as a guest, we talk about that. Why don't certain people move forward? And it has nothing to do with their brain power or their IQ. It might be more about EQ, your emotional quotient, or your emotional intelligence. People are scared and people are stuck for whatever reason. They analyze too much or overanalyze, the classic analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
So let's kind of talk further about, so who is this avatar? We talked about the age, could be anything from 18 to 76, mainly in the 45 plus area. Yeah. Is it mostly male? What were they doing prior to this that has them looking at this? And also my follow-up to that is, do they have to be full-time in this, or some of these people very part-time?
Yeah, this is good. So some of our best students, which is why I really clicked when you and I met, were people looking at one of 2 things: a franchise or a large multi-building. Several people had both of these categories because they were mentally ready to commit the cash or time to do these. And then they found us and said, cool, I can do that. It's a little different. And, there's pros and cons to everything. So people looking for a business or large property, multifamily, because that would have taken gobs of cash or raising money. And the way we do it, you don't have to do that. And we teach them how. Second, people that, like, we're a family business, people, whether you like it or not, right? When you're looking in our company. So sometimes we'll get a lot of feedback on, I either witnessed a family business growing up, or I always wanted a family business with my kids or whatever. So we tend to attract those people. And the third is, especially post-COVID, but it's always been there. And that is the individual that has a W-2 and they made good money, as I alluded to earlier, and they're just burnt from it. And now, as you know, COVID drove a lot of people starting their own business, and you and I have the benefit of that now.
Yes.
So we get a lot of that. And the cool thing about this is the real estate piece, and probably a lot of your franchises too. Once they learn this skill set, I tell them, like, whether you ever talk to me again personally, you can go buy your own house this way. I can't, like, nobody can take that skill set from you. That's what's really cool about creative real estate, right? So you learn it for life, whether we're in your life or not, you get to have that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting you brought that up, because I tell people, if you don't have an original idea, a franchise could be the best route for you, because there is a proven formula, a blueprint, like
100%.
we're talking about with you,
Yeah.
that you get to follow. And oh, by the way, you don't know this yet, but once you have built a business, you now will establish this confidence in yourself. This self-esteem even grows, that you have this new skill or set of skills, and you're going to take over the world. I know guys gals, everybody that got into their first business and changed completely. And now all of a sudden they're creating their own concepts and what have you. So it's a platform to do anything. So this is great stuff. Let's talk about the time in this business. And also, what did people really do before? So if you line up your top 15 students ever, what do they have in common? Were they focused on this business full time? What did they do before?
Yeah.
How much time during the week are people really spending doing this? Is it 40 hours? Is it more?
I just realized in that recap of questions that I didn't answer another question about full time. So I'll try to hit it if I forget.
That's okay.
So
I'm excited. I'm asking a lot of questions at once.
They're great. I got to try to remember them. I'm not writing down. So most people come to us with a full-time commitment somewhere else already, a job, right? Some come to us in the real estate realm because they realize creative real estate now is the thing. Like, I've been screaming about it for years, but now people start to realize, wow, this is like perfect timing for creative real estate, this economy. But most have a job. So we tend to be working with high earners that want to exit that. And high earners, the two categories that come to mind would be sales, sure, because they're comfortable with people, but for some reason, engineering and banking. I don't know if it's the number piece of this or what, but they have huge success. We just had one guy leave after 30 years as an electrical engineer building submarines with the government, 30 years. And he just left full time. He's one of our coaches. So that there's a little bit of a commonality there. Time-wise, I want people to start and try to carve out like 5 to 10 hours a week. I want it because if they get their whistle wet a little bit with that, to your point, one deal changes their confidence overnight. And then they start seeing the light. Even though I've told them the path, I've given them a predictable way to do it, it really lights them up. And then in that guy's case, he did 4 deals with me. They were all over 6 figures. And he's like, bingo, I can leave. You know, he had a strong, like, I don't know, 175 grand job plus pennies. He left immediately because 4 or 5 deals at 100 grand is a nice thing. So it tends to light them up.
400,000 plus in 4 or 5 deals. And that was in what period of time?
Well, he was in the community for a good 9 or 10 months. But then when I got a hold of him, I kept hearing his name. I only coached the higher level associates. So I reached out to him once. He was on vacation. And I said, look, I'm hearing your name over and over. He's from New Hampshire too, Lance. He wasn't far from me. I just didn't know him. And I said, I want to take you into my group. I want to do deals. I want to create a really cool story for the community with you. He said, I'm in. He hadn't done a deal yet. We did 4 deals between April and August, and they were all 100K each.
That's awesome. Great story. So let's give the audience a picture as to what it takes to start in this process. You do an application, you get accepted, and then what does the process look like? What is the training like? You mentioned you're not necessarily by yourself. You have support and people to talk to. You mentioned Slack. So I know you could find a lot of answers post-training, maybe throughout that sort of curriculum and communications and all that. But what is that? What does it really entail? What do you do in that initial 5-10 hours a week?
Yeah.
And how do you support them?
Yeah. So I try to go in order in my head. They go through the academy first. It's basically, I'm going to call it not a course, but more of a resource center, because it is a course. But once you go through it, there's a module for everything we do, every way we buy, scripts. So you'll end up going back through that as you need it. You're getting a house by owner financing. Okay, you're going to revisit that mod. So it's a living, breathing, evolving academy. That's one. Secondly, you're going through a 90-day onboarding, no matter what level, no matter what your goals are, you're all going through a 90-day onboarding process, which is new. About 2 years ago, we started this, so that the foundation is laid properly, no matter how fast or slow you want to go. After that onboarding, you're then placed into whatever group you chose. There's different levels in the company you can participate at depending on your goals and your commitment. And then you're assigned a coach. So there's 5 coaches, and then I take the higher level with one of the coaches. I do that, Lance, just as a side note, because I started this company because I like doing deals. So Zach, who you met, and other people in the company, they'll work on team building and all the culture and all that fun stuff. I want to do deals with students, so that's where my specialty is. They'll participate in a group call after that every single week. So a small group, not their entire group, like 3 or 4 people, maybe 6 tops. Then on a weekly basis, all of them come together at 5 o'clock on Thursday. It's been that way for years. And they have an hour together to ask questions, do deals, whatever it might be that week. Might have a guest speaker. So they're all plugged into that stuff. And then we do live events and virtual events every year. Guests come, but it's really a time for them to gather and be a community. Like this fall, we'll be in Boston. First time in Boston. Usually it's Rhode Island. And they love that because they get to, as you know, when you're in an event, more comes out of those side conversations than anything on stage. And the relationships, the deals, and the camaraderie.
Yeah, it's amazing the jewel or the nugget that you learn when you meet people face to face. We have an annual convention for all of our brokers that are part of our group. And it's amazing what we learn from each other. It's amazing what we learn from hobnobbing or elbowing elbow to elbow with our brands at the same time. So 100%. I get that. So how do you handle the virtual nature? You're very local and you're very hands-on, but you're also nationwide. You have people that are doing this across the country, right?
Yeah. The virtual thing, actually, COVID, I thought it was cool when it happened, right? Because like, oh, my wife's like, oh, you don't have to travel. But then I realized the face-to-face you can't beat. So we do both on purpose. We do both. The virtual events, more for the new people and the community glue, and then the live events to really solidify. People aren't gonna, I mean, you have franchise, you sell higher ticket items than us. So you know that it's a little bit more difficult when you're not face to face. So we do a little of both.
You know, also, I think it's us being, older than 35-ish, where, when Zoom really came out big, especially during COVID, and everybody was on Zoom. I mean, I was on Zoom with my family, and which was crazy because, you thought it was only going to be for business. And there are a lot of brands, in franchising, there's that discovery day or meet the team day. And a lot of brands post-COVID are still doing it through Zoom because at least you're seeing somebody. It's not like 20 years ago where it was just a regular phone call. So I think it's really you and me, we like the face-to-face, but we're back East guys, so that's the difference.
Hey, I like the mix. So let's keep the mix up.
So let me ask this. You mentioned deals with students. So it sounds like that's a big perk of this program because, the classic, they're in business for themselves, not by themselves. So what does that mean? Like in your area, you're going to show us, students going to bring you a deal, right? I mean, how do they get the deals in the first place? You show them certain lead gen techniques?
Yeah, this is good. So every student, when they go through that onboarding, are going to have access and learn how to access the resources. And one of the resources, is where am I getting my leads? There's a platform that every day feeds them the type of leads we want them to have. Then their virtual assistant is going to call, not them. The virtual assistant is going to call. They've been trained on creative real estate. Only after they've called and they get someone to basically raise their hand and go, yeah, I'm interested in learning how I could sell that way. That benefits me. Okay. Now the student's going to call. They're going to have already listened to ad nauseum a bunch of seller calls with us doing calls, so they can hear live calls, good, bad, and otherwise. They're going to have read the scripts, so they're prepared for that call. And all they're looking to do is they're looking to solve a problem or help them accomplish a goal that the market's not doing, right? That's all creative real estate is. You're solving, you're providing solutions. Once they do that, we're starting to get involved because we're listening to recorded calls. That's a great way to speed up the learning curve, a great way, one of the most effective. So we're listening to calls, and then we're saying to them, great, tell them your senior partner or your team's going to call next, and one of the coaches calls that seller. And then if it's appropriate in the area, we record that call and we let the student learn from that. So that learning curve just constantly, evolves. I don't think there's a better way, I said earlier, than this interactive piece we do. And then a contract has to be written. So for the first time, they'll go back to the resource center and they'll watch the video on how to fill that contract out. They'll get it over to the coach. It'll get approved, and then that goes out for signature, and they get their first home on the contract. And then we have, I don't know what it is now, 450 maybe deal structures that we post on YouTube. Like people can go see them and see the deals we do. We've been doing that once a week since 2017 or 18. So there's a lot of deals out there that they can learn from.
So, you mentioned the contracts. For somebody that has never done this before, whether it's an engineer or a banker, you don't know anything about real estate contracts.
Yeah.
So how do you, I know there's, to some degree, there are templates that fit. There's going to be some customization. How do you guys handle that?
There's a whole mod in the this academy I was referring to. It's called QLS, Quantum Leap System. It's a whole mod on just contracts and checklists. And literally, Lance, it's the deals, because I still do deals personally, right? So my son and I. So it's literally the deals and the contracts and the checklists that we use every day. And if we see a glitch or we had a learning curve or an expensive lesson, we tweak things, and they get access to these all the time.
Expensive lesson. I love that.
And those keep coming. So, that mod alone, like there's educators like me, and I'm not poo-pooing on them, but they'll take any one of my modules and sell it as a standalone course, and then they never give any support. So we have a whole mod of all that in it. It's invaluable. It's part of the course.
All right. So if I'm a student, I follow your lead gen program. I get a great lead. So you bring that to the team, to a coach. They say, this is great. This is not, negotiation tips and points and whatever, and you get a deal done. Where does the student, I know you said creative financing, but, so there's not really any cash. Is there financing from the group on some deals? How does that all work?
Yep. Okay. So owner financing deals, lease purchase deals, a little bit different in the cash front. So lease purchase deal, you don't own the house, but you control the real estate, and there's a $10 deposit built into our agreements. Literally, you can control. We had a guy in Chicago, Brian, another cool story, who did his first 8 deals lease purchase. He was afraid to own. So I said, let's just do lease purchase. So $10 a deal. And he amassed the 3 payday system we have, which we trademarked. He amassed over 800, I think it was 838 grand in 8 deals on controlling it with a $10 lease purchase agreement. So it's super, super productive. And then on owner financing, I can't say no money, because usually if we give the seller no money, there's transfer tax and whatnot you'd have to cover. You're not going to say, I'm giving you no money and pay your own transfer tax. So in that method, we make 2 or 3 grand come out of pocket, but we're not raising gobs of money. Are there deals where some money could be needed and there's a lot of equity to be had? Yes. And in that case, we do have an entity, where we'll partner with the student outside of the program, and we'll kind of come in and help do that deal. But those are anomalies. That's not the norm. We want to make sure we teach them how to do it without it.
So needless to say, Brian is happy with his 8 houses he did the lease purchase deal with.
He's super happy, but after that, he goes, you're right, I got to own these. So we buy him owner financing now, or we buy what's called subject to existing financing, where I buy your house because you need financial relief, unlike a free and clear person. You need financial relief, and the mortgage is staying in your name. I'm never guaranteeing mortgage, ever. And we're going to still own the house. So you can control and or buy all this real estate with very little to no money.
That's pretty enticing. I think I love that idea. I have to understand, when you were talking about the sales calls and you're working with engineers or retired bankers, they don't usually have sales skills.
Yeah, Rick is a great example. Like, his calls aren't the most exciting and over the top energetic, but he gets the math and he's confident because of it, and he comes across that way. And when you're confident on the phone, this, you comes across the phone line, and so he gets deals. He loves what we're doing, and if you love it, it comes across, right? So I think that's where his plus is. And something about the math.
I had a feeling you would answer it sort of like that. I mean, obviously we didn't rehearse anything here, but the reason I wanted to ask that is whether it's somebody coming to me looking at any of the 900 franchises I represent, or interested in what you're talking about. A lot of times people, that fear seeps in, because what do they say? I've never done that before.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm capable of that. Well, obviously, all you have to do, and I tell people this all the time. I just had a call this morning about this same subject. Just because, you're not a salesperson and it's not on your resume, doesn't mean you can't be empathetic and good with people. And those are the hallmarks of being a salesperson. It's listening to people, empathizing, and being educated enough to your exact point on a subject to help somebody out.
Yeah, big point, because people say to me a lot to this day, how do you convince the seller to do that? And I go, okay, that's where you're wrong. You don't convince or sell anyone, or you're going to be convincing and selling them for the next 5 years. You do what you said, and you listen and you look for a problem to solve or a goal to help them accomplish that otherwise can't be done in the conventional market. That's it. And the reason it's different, by the way, Lance, is if someone's financially in need, I'm solving a problem, right? Yep. If someone's free and clear, which I love free and clear properties, 39% of the properties in the US are free and clear. So it's a great, another whole niche, another whole show. We could talk about that, but we structure those with them because they need the money. Nope. Because they want top dollar and they're able to wait over time because they don't need the money. And we structure monthly principal pay down on that. No interest, monthly principal only payments. So there's a lot of liquidity there that gets created.
No, I love this. This is a great topic, and I'm glad we're going through it. So what is the investment in this associate program? It sounds like there's different ways to come into the program.
Yeah, the course itself, if someone wants to take the course, because I know this question comes up and I'll answer it first. Well, I just want to take the course and go do deals. I say, great. Course is like $1,500, but I promise them that they will leave money on the table. They'll do deals and they'll make money, but they'll leave a whole bunch of money on the table that I could have found for them, right? In the deals. The associate programs run from 100 grand down to 5 grand. And there's 4 of them. So they go like 5, 30, 50, and 100. And they have, those just carry different splits, revenue shares, and different levels of how committed we are, what coach they have, et cetera.
Got it. And that makes perfect sense, because, and that was sort of my expectation, that when you were mentioning the coaches involved, everybody has a vested interest in this.
They do. And what's really cool is we did this like 2 years ago. We put all the coaches in a pool now, so that when Smart Real Estate Coach gets some rev share from a deal, they all share in it equally. Now that changes the whole Slack community and the support, because if I'm busy or Mike's busy, then Rick's jumping in. It doesn't matter. Even though they're assigned to a level, they'll all cross help.
So if you like one particular coach the best, can you reach out to that coach first when you have an opportunity?
You actually can. That's funny. We have people that will upgrade. Recently, someone upgraded to what we call high 6, right? That's my level, me and Mike. And they said, but I really like Rick. Rick's the guy who left his job. I said, then keep Rick. We'll give you the better split. You keep Rick. So yeah, it happens.
I love it. That's great. Yeah. So if I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, man, this guy Chris knows what the heck he's talking about, I can't wait to start listening to his podcast. And this sounds so interesting, but I don't know. In my market, I don't know if this works. A lot of people
Classic.
Is it totally? It's totally classic. I had a guy in Jersey last year tell me he was looking at certain essential franchises like air conditioning and plumbing or whatever, but he wasn't sure. And everything I showed him, he said, Lance, there's too much competition in my area for that and for this. Yeah. And I looked at him finally. I'm like, how do you know? You're not even in that business. Yeah. How do you know? And I always tell people, let the brand prove to you, because they're the ones that are the experts. And in most cases, the biggest franchises are going to, beat up on the local competition, unfortunately. So you tell me, whether you have somebody in California that generally tends to be a little more difficult to do business, or Indiana, how do you gauge whether somebody can be successful based on geography?
I don't base on geography at all, just to be blunt, at all, because if they will be coachable, and if they will set their expectations, just like a franchisee owner, I'm sure, that it's not a get rich overnight, unlike a lot of educators screaming that online today with their real estate. It's not. I'll be the first to tell you that. But if you're willing to put the blinders on for 3 to 7 years, you'll have an amazing experience. I don't care where you are geographically. In fact, pick somewhere you want to be. And I'll show you a 50-mile radius around you, unless it's very, you're out in the middle of nowhere. Then we'll tweak it. But usually 50-mile radius is where we generate the leads. Unless I'm in 2 different states the way I live. So I like doing things in both ends. That's just a choice. But yeah, you can do it right in your own woods. Everyone says, I don't know about my market. I don't know about my price range. I don't know about it doesn't matter. It matters about you. That's all that matters.
And that's exactly what I tell them too. It just matters about you.
Yep.
So it doesn't really matter what market you're in. And you mentioned that you're in 2 states. Mm-hmm. Are there people that start this? Because a lot of phone work. Are there people that start this from another state for whatever reason?
Not a lot. I get that question a lot. Like, hey, you can do this virtually. Yeah, you can. You can have boots on the ground to see the property. You can have pictures taken just like an appraiser would or an inspector. Yeah, you can do all that. But again, this face-to-face piece we talked about with the community is the same with sellers. You're trying to buy their house. They have to trust you, and you're going to do 100% of it online. It's going to be a little more difficult, or virtual to me a little more. That's all. Can you do it? Yes. You'll lose some deals.
Yeah.
Now, during COVID, we had a woman in New York in a high-rise. COVID crushed her. She was sold, timeshare. So that was kind of crushed. So she was calling down to Jacksonville, Florida, where her family was, because she wanted a reason to go there and be able to travel. So great. So things like that happen. She did a couple deals that way. But by and large, just do it right in your own backyard.
Yeah. How good does it feel to change people's lives? I mean, because a lot of these people that you're talking about, just like in the world of franchising, this is their first real foray into making any kind of serious money, and to some degree.
It's what keeps me coaching, Lance, because and you don't know it until you coach. So if the listeners never coach, like, yeah, I don't know what that. No, as soon as you coach, you understand, or mentor, you understand that when you start changing lives, that doesn't get old. So all of our coaches, coincidentally, but maybe not coincidentally, they all left their jobs and now they're full time. That's pretty cool. And they all did it slightly differently, right? But we all gave them a predictable plan. They hit it within months. So it's really cool. Short answer.
That's pretty amazing. Any additional revenue streams planned? Because I got to figure, if I'm Chris Prefontaine, you know what that tells me? Tells me that success begets future success, or even bigger success of dabbling and entering other areas of real estate.
Two things. One is within the company, we're always looking at that. So we're looking at some continuity type things that would help support people a little bit better. But with us, if we do more deals with the 3 payday system we have, everyone wins. So the newer, bigger, better is, let's do more deals. Let's eke out more money out of each deal, and let's do more deals. Yeah. Because I said at the beginning of the show, I think, in fact, April was one of the record months, except for March of 20 during COVID. We took I want to say 26 deals hit the board in April. That's a record. So why? Because right now, creative real estate's sought after big time. We're a guide, we're a solution right now. And we are, going back to your competition comment, we are by far just a pimple on the map, because creative real estate's been around since 1600s, yet still not mainstream. So there's a huge opportunity there.
I love it. I love what you're doing. So final thoughts, final tips, final words of wisdom for the audience on this.
A couple things. I want to give you a tribe. I said to you at the beginning, a free book. And I don't like the offers that say free book, and then you got to put a card in for shipping. So we will ship it from our office. Sue's going to send it to you. Just go to wickedsmartbooks.com/Lance and the numeric number 1. So wickedsmartbooks.com/Lance and the number 1. 2 other things we can do. Depending on where they are geographically, we have an event coming up in September. So you can get on a free call with me. I said I would do this for your tribe. My team will kill me, but I want to talk to you. And it's not about sales. It's not about any of that. It's about, where the heck are you now? Sort of what we talked about. Where are you trying to go? If you already there, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right? So you're listening to this because you want some opportunity. Let's figure out what's blocking you, and let's find out a way to get there. So go to smartrealestatecoach.com/Chris Pre-call. And we'll jump on personally. It won't be one of my team. It'll be me, and we'll talk.
Yeah, I love it. I will put all this, make sure my team puts all this in the show notes as well. Great. And you're awesome. It's going to go out on YouTube. We'll get to see both of our ugly mugs live and in person. And
sounds like a plan, Lance.
Chris, you're awesome. Thank you for being here, and we shall talk soon.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
If you're ready to talk about franchise opportunities, hit the link below to schedule a call. My services are free. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for listening.